This is the Accessible Enneagram, an Enneagram podcast for everyone. I'm your co-host, Tori, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm your other co-host, Meg, and I use she and they pronouns. We are making this podcast accessible to everyone, acknowledging differences in identities, abilities, and level of familiarity with the Enneagram. And today, we're going to be talking about Type 2, whose core word is holding.
Before we begin talking about the two, we will be reviewing our Enneagram golden rules, the first of which is only you can type yourself. Only we know our own motivations. We can only observe actions in others. So while we can observe people's actions and it can be fun to think about what type they might be, especially if it's someone who has died, is famous, etc., we can't really do that in any meaningful way, and we need to respect the integrity of each person and their own internal motivations, which is what really determines your type.
Yep, and if somebody tells you their number and you think they're a different number, you go with what they tell you.
Yeah, it's just like pronouns. If someone tells you what their name and pronouns are, you should just use them.
Wild. So secondly, the Enneagram should not be used with eye rolls at any other numbers. This is not an excuse for you to go, oh my gosh, there's such a blank. Instead, you are welcome to grill yourself. Self-burns are totally welcome here, but don't burn other people.
Yeah, stay tuned for Meg doing a great example of that during the one episode. Each human and each number exists on a scale of healthy to unhealthy, which may vary by person and by situation throughout a person's life. So actions may vary, but again, what's most important, especially for the typing and our understanding of the Enneagram, is a person's core motivations and their drive.
Yep, and a reminder, if you are getting frustrated with how other people are acting, just remember that 8 out of 9 people are not like you. You are only 1 out of 9 Enneagram numbers, and that means that the vast majority of other people are going to have different reactions than you, are going to have different impulses than you, and that's okay. That's great. But just remember, if you're getting frustrated with somebody being different from you, odds are not in your favor there, that you are 1 in 9, and so keep in mind that other people are 8 out of 9 and different.
And finally, our Accessible Enneagram trademark golden rule: don't be a dick.
TM.
The Enneagram is not for being a dick. The Enneagram is for self-compassion and compassion for others and greater self-understanding and growth. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Just don't. So today we are talking about Type 2, who is represented by the word holding. And this is because they find purpose in relationships. The core belief of the Type 2 is that the world needs more love, and so thus they must be loving for others. And because of this, they like to avoid their own needs.
This is your Rumi quote, Type 2. It's your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you. As ever, we are going to be discussing our Type 2s using a strengths-based approach. This means that we are jettisoning toxic language that focuses on foibles and flaws and uses heavy things that have like religious signification that doesn't necessarily match with many people using the Enneagram, may bring up religious trauma, not particularly helpful. So we're using the strengths-based approach that most clinicians, especially social workers like Meg, prefer to use, which is looking at how every person and every number has gifts and challenges, strengths and struggles, things that they're offering and things that are hard for them. So twos have many strengths. The ones that we are highlighting are as follows. Twos are really good at knowing other people's needs.
Yep. They try to anticipate others' needs is also their strength, is that they want to get you what you need before they have to ask for it. So that's their core motivation for the 2, is to be able to fulfill unspoken needs because they just know you so well. They know what you need.
Yeah, being able to meet someone else's need is the way that the 2 is able to know that they feel valued and important in relationship, which is the way that they are giving their life meaning and purpose. So knowing someone's needs means you can meet those needs, which means you're serving that other person, which means that you're doing what you need to do to feel good. And 2s are also really good at seeing the best in other people and their potential, which is also a wonderful trait.
Yep. The reason why it's the word holding for the two is because they're really good at holding people in their entirety. They're really good at holding space for people. They're really good at nurturing people. And so that's where the seeing the best in others comes into that, is they want to be there and they want to nurture you and want to hold you as you grow into a better person.
The struggles of the two are, as ever, directly related to their strengths. They need to be needed, which can be challenging because sometimes people don't actually need the things that you think they need from you. And that can be really hard for twos to recognize. Maybe their kids are grown up and they don't need the same help. Maybe somebody is trying really hard to be self-sufficient and autonomous because that's important to them, and that's a source of conflict. And related to that is twos can sometimes get into this space where they like know best, using quotation marks here, what others need. So they don't necessarily listen to what people say they need or are asking for. And instead they just do stuff.
Yeah, and this is related to the word that's usually used for the two struggle, which is pride. And it shows up in the twos in a relationship specific way, and it has to do with their ego and about how they are perceived in relationships. And so the whole drive to be needed, though, they take pride in that. They take pride in being somebody that somebody else needs. And then that also feeds into the knowing best with others' needs of, no, I know best. No, I know you so well. I know you better than you know yourself. Is again that whole like ego driven pride sense of I know best. And gosh darn it, why won't you let me help you?
Yeah. And this is something that twos are one of the numbers, I think, who are most often characterized in an almost completely positive way.
Angelic.
Yeah, angelic. I think a lot of their strengths and their good qualities are culturally really valued. And there isn't necessarily a lot of talk about the kind of the dark side, the shadow side of these behaviors, but twos can be super codependent. They can be manipulative. And since they aren't good when they're not healthy, they're not good at meeting their own needs and understanding them and acknowledging them. They can get overextended by trying to help everyone else all the time. And if they don't receive the outcome that they think they should, the satisfaction or recognition from doing these things for other people, they can get really resentful. That can be really hard for the two, but it can also be really messy for anyone who's in a relationship with that person.
Yeah, and twos also tend to see relationship things in a transactional sense. And so twos will be keeping track of like, here's all the things that I did for you, and here's my unspoken expectation of why haven't you done these things for me? So twos can make that assumption of like, I don't understand why you can't see my needs in the same way that I can see yours. And so twos are really also not great at vocalizing their own needs. Twos can be really bad at asking for the help that they need. And so they, again, can really struggle with this idea of resentment because twos will just pour more and more and more and more of themselves into a relationship because they think that that's going to be what works. But then each time they give something that they don't get back, there's that little layer of resentment. And then it's a little more, and then it's a little more and a little more. And so like, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh, yeah, I do struggle with resentment in relationships, just keep that in mind of like, maybe you're a two.
Yeah. A note about this with twos before we go on too is I think twos are probably the most gendered number type in at least the like US context that we're talking from. A lot of these traits are very feminized. And so sometimes it can be hard to differentiate if you are a femme or if you were gendered as a woman or a girl at some point in your life. If you're a parent, it can be really hard to, especially if you're a mom, to differentiate between these traits you're supposed to have and like what your true motivation is. And just keeping that in mind. We'll talk more about this in the typing episode, but there's a lot of numbers that are like the common mistypes for each other, and 2 and 9 are often mistyped for each other. 9s do not have this like battle with resentment that 2s have. 9s can be passive aggressive, as can 2s, but 9s are not doing this tit for tat thing the way that 2s are. And so if you're somebody who is like not really sure, like I'm a people pleaser, if you know you're a people pleaser and not sure what style of people pleaser you are, if you are looking for acknowledgement and recognition and feeling resentment if you don't get those things, you're not a 9. you're probably a 2 or a 3 instead. Keep that in the back of your head, and we'll keep talking about these like social layers on top of the numbers as we go on, because that does change the way you type for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, identity is intersectional, which means every part of your identity influences the other parts of your identity. So the same goes with the Enneagram, is that is completely influenced by your identities, and it also influences how you show up in those identities in the world. So we'll be breaking more of that down later, but just know that the 2 is very much gendered and does not need to be. So just try to take these traits completely out of our gender construct. That doesn't have to do anything with gender roles or with parental roles, and just really ask yourself, if I wasn't in this body, if I wasn't in this role, how would I feel? What would I really be doing? So just break it down.
Yeah. For men who are 2s, like the way that this like devotion and holding and like taking care of can look different, but it's still the same core motivation. That's where it's like back to motivation, not behavior. And if you're, again, struggling with manifesting these traits and you're like not sure if that makes you a 2, think about if this is the way you approach basically every situation, or if it's just relational. If you're really, really 2-like with your spouse or your kids, that okay, like you might not be a 2. You might just be in a close relationship with someone and wanting to take care of them. So
right. Does it shape everything you do, or does it shape what you do in certain relationships?
Exactly.
And that's the difference. If you're a 2, it'll do everything. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then moving on to how the 2 relates with other numbers. The 2 is part of the heart triad along with 3s and 4s, which means that their core strength is attunement and their core struggle is distress. So the 2s are very much in tune with other people's needs, and they are less in tune with their own. So the strength of attunement is super strong with the 2, again, in terms of anticipating others' needs, of, hearing what's not spoken, being able to read between the lines for what other people might need. And so they're very good at being in tune with other people, but they are not so good at being in tune with what they need or their limits or their boundaries, and needing to take time for themselves as well. So it's that like self-sacrificing part of the 2 that can get unhealthy fast.
On that note, 2s are the externalizing number in the heart triad. So 3s are avoidant, 4s internalize, 2s externalize. So the way they're dealing with their struggle with stress is they're just dealing with other people's distress out here. So they don't have to deal with it in here, and are tuning out here and not here.
Very much the whole, again, ignoring your own needs. Oh no, I only see that in other people. Oh no, I'm only worried about other people. Oh no, that's all, I can see that in other people. And so it's, the 2s really need to focus on bringing it back to themselves, which can feel really hard for a 2 because, again, they want to be needed by other people. And then that means that they don't want to be needy themselves. And then moving on to the wings, that shows up in different ways for the 2. 2s with a 1 wing value helping other people for the right reasons. So they can really hold themselves to like a higher moral standard from that perspective. But then because of that, they also share the perfectionism trait with the 1, where they hold themselves to sometimes unreasonably high standards in relationships. And again, with this whole like ego and pride concept, they really want to look perfect in relationships. So again, it's a lot about like how they project themselves, which again ties into the 3. But for the 2-wing 1, it's about being the, quote unquote, perfect partner. And so it comes from that like drive to be the perfect person in relationship with someone else.
Yeah. Perfect parent, perfect partner, perfect employee. And 2-wing 1s can stay in situations that are not healthy because of that image piece, or it's like if it doesn't fit their self-concept to be someone who gets a divorce, who quits their job, who et cetera, or who needs help figuring out how to parent because they aren't totally sure what to do with their kid right now, they might avoid getting the help or changing their situation because they don't want to admit that they're not perfect in this role that they're working on.
Yep. And then moving on to 2s with a 3-wing. 3s are, because they gain their value from external sources, they are really quantity driven. And so that comes into play with the 2, where 2s with a 3-wing really value the quantity of how they can help. And so they also want that ego satisfaction that is shared with a 3 of being recognized for the work that they do. So that is like the really core overlap between the 2s and the 3s. And then because of that, because they want to see how much they can help others, and because they want to be recognized for how much they help others, they can have a really hard time saying no to things. So there's a very, 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 very high risk of burnout for 2s with a 3-wing.
Yeah, I would say that 2s are actually probably highest risk for burnout overall. But yeah, 2 with a 3-wing, that's rough. And if you're thinking about which wing you might have and you're pretty sure you're a 2, it's really about like how public facing is the kind of help you try to provide, or like what makes you feel satisfied. Is it like your very special person saying thank you? Or is it like a thank you note signed by all these people who your organization was able to sign grants to this year, for example? So that's kind of the difference. And Meg, I wonder if you might talk just briefly about your experience typing as a 1 with a 2-wing instead of the other 2 with a 1-wing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I originally typed as a 2 and then realized that I was a 1. And I think the biggest moment for me was going to the triad perspective of stuff. And so 2s are in the heart triad. They're all about feeling. 1s are in the gut triad. It's all about being. And so for this whole like desire to help other people, which was really where I was identifying as a 2, my desire to help other people comes from this belief that that's the right thing to do, that it's good to help other people. And so this is something that I want to be doing, but it's from this place of like, I want to be right. And like, I feel it in my gut that the right thing to do is to help other people. And it's just this like gut feeling. It is this existence. Versus a 2 is in the heart triad, so it's all about feeling. So it's like, I want to feel like I'm doing the right thing. I want to feel like I'm helping other people. It's for me to feel that satisfaction and to feel the lack of distress versus the ones needing to be right, to be that person. So I think that's the like differentiating factor between 2s and 1s. And then again, it's also like, are you doing things because you need things to be better at everything, in which case you're a 1? Or are you doing things because you want to be helpful and because you find value in how you are in relationship with other people? So it's like also kind of this like macro micro scale where the 1 is on this big like macro overview of like keeping everything usually in like a societal context, and 2s are usually more down at the micro level of like my relationships with people and your immediate circle and their direct sphere of influence.
Yeah, there's like a huge drive for the 2 to experience like true intimacy and connection with someone else. And that can lead them into a place where if they don't have good boundaries or a solid sense of their own self-worth in doing all of these like codependent or manipulative behaviors or controlling, like a 2-wing 1 could find themselves being controlling in relationships as a way of kind of like managing that dynamic to make it themselves feel good. 1s are less focused on that like connection with one other person and more about just like order and like the way things should be generally.
And the way that they are being in the world.
Yes, exactly. And like any small thing a 1 does is an extension of this like bigger value they have about the way the world is. Whereas 2s are more likely to extrapolate a generalization from their small experience.
Yep. And then back to that concept of the need to like be relating deeply with other people on like an intimate level. The 2 has lines with the 4 and the 8. And the 4 also really values that intimate connection with people. The 4 is coming from this place of really feeling everything, really feeling deeply. And so 2s, when they are accessing that 4, can be able to feel really deeply with others, be able to feel their own feelings finally, and then being able to, again, share that desire to have an intimate and completely understanding, authentic relationship with someone else. But then they can get lost in the sauce of their own emotions and needs, as the 4 can as well.
Yeah, that can be really, that's like one of those very classic Enneagram double-edged swords of like, the benefit of this line is very clear. The drawback of this line is like...
also very clear.
Yeah, very clear. The tendency that all 3 heart numbers have towards this kind of like ego-driven self-centeredness that can happen when they're not healthy is really exacerbated on this line. So that's something to definitely keep your eye on.
Yeah, and whenever you have a line that's within the same triad, it's essentially doubling whatever you already are struggling with. Sorry, twos. And then the other line that twos have is with eights. And so they can really channel the 8 when they are advocating for other people. The 8 can really help them take a stand and stand up for what other people need. But then it can also have a very strong confrontational reaction when there is interference with a two's help. And so my anecdotal tangent story about this is that my partner's mom is a 2, super duper classic, always has like 5 bowls of food out whenever we're there. Like her whole purpose is to try to fill other people's needs, which like also is probably has something to do with the fact that she is, you know, an evangelical Christian woman. But the story is she was making her cinnamon rolls and she was making a maple icing with them. And the maple extract that she was using, the company had recently changed their recipe to include more alcohol than water in the extract. And it smelled really boozy. They don't drink, so that was really upsetting for her because she was worried that that taste would come through in the icing. And so she was so upset by this that she called the company and waited on hold to speak to a person to tell them how upset she was that they changed the formula. And so she was like, I need to leave my feedback because this is unacceptable because I can't stand this. And it was totally out of left field for me. Or the first time while it was happening, I was like, wow, I didn't know you had this in you. Like, all right, where'd this come from? But then putting it in the context of like, oh, well, that was her 8 line coming out because there was this thing that was getting between her and the way that she wants to fill other people's needs. It's getting in the way of her help. It's getting in the way of her caring. And so that 8 comes out and they are ready to fight. They will fight you. They will go for it. And that is really funny to see in 2s who are usually like very docile and mild-mannered and are like, oh, no, it's fine. And it's not fine when you get in between them and their loved ones and how they're going to care for them. Like that, again, that whole like mama bear stereotype just comes out in full swing when 2s are channeling the 8.
Yeah. The other thing that the shadow side of that too is that, you know, the identity piece of like, these are my famous cinnamon rolls and everyone knows I don't drink. And if people eat this and it tastes boozy, like what will they think? It's like she relies on this being this way so that she can do this task in a way that perpetuates her self-image of like the person that she is. So then that reactivity of the 8 is just happening from there too, which is, yeah, it's, I agree. I just, when you first told me that story, I was like, what?
Whomst?
Partly because as a 9, I immediately came up with like 4 options that did not include talking to a human being or being mad at anyone. And I was just like, what is happening here? And then I remembered like, oh, 2 has an 8 line. This is absolutely where this is. But yeah, so I think that's a really good example. And especially again, with that gender piece, if you are a woman or a femme and you're not sure if you're a 2, maybe think about whether you might really be an 8. And you're just like living on that 2 line because that's more socially acceptable. You know, that's something to consider.
Yeah. And that's another thing to keep in mind if you are considering whether or not you might be a 2.
You might be a 2 if everyone tells you their problems all the time and you love it.
If you love taking care of and helping others.
If you feel hurt when other people won't let you take care of them.
In the way that you want to.
Ouch.
Also, if you take pride in how you support your loved ones and how much you support them.
And if you find yourself consistently overcommitted and emotionally overextended, you're probably a 2.
Looking at you, 2s. So also for our 2s, to end on a positive note, we wanted to have some affirmations for 2s to carry with you as you move along, because these are things that I think you really probably need to hear on a daily basis. So please just carry these with you and repeat them to yourself as often as you need. So 2s, you are worthy of love all on your own, and you deserve to be cared for too. It's true.
You do. We love you, 2s.
Hearts.
This has been Type 2. Thank you for being patient with us, Type 2, as we had to re-record this audio because we want it to be good for you.
You deserve it.
This is the Accessible Enneagram. This has been our episode on Type 2. You can find our other episodes and more about the Enneagram and about us on our website, which is accessibleenneagram.com. We have a YouTube channel where you can watch this, or maybe you're watching it right now. We also have an Instagram where Meg has a lot of great memes that she's been curating for us. And you can also find this as a podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including on our Anchor landing page, which is the hosting service that we use.
Yep. And then you also can get in touch with us. There's a contact form on our website. You can also email us directly at accessibleenneagram@gmail.com. If there's anything we can do to make this more accessible, whether it's from an identity standpoint, an ability standpoint, please let us know. This is called the Accessible Enneagram for a reason. And if we have done something to be exclusionary, please let us know. We want to make it right. And we'd love to hear from you. So this has been the Accessible Enneagram, and we hope you grow with us. Bye!